is up, YouTube? What's going on, fellow fantasy people? And as always, what is up, the Catch fam? It is your boy John, and we have got Steven in the house, of course, bringing you guys kind of our week one preview podcast. So pretty casual tonight, just going to be having some conversations with my boy Steve over there. Super pumped, man. I think we're both so excited for this 2021 football season. So we just want to kind of lay some questions on each other and kind of see, we've obviously done, a podcast for each division. We've done a ton of fantasy content so far. So we really just want to actually kind of hone in as week one kicks off Wednesday, which is crazy, man. Less than a week. And I think we just want to get each other's thoughts, where we're at with everything. So let's get right into it, man. So first question of the night. Which playoff team from last year is not going to make the playoffs this year? I want you to answer first. I'm interested to see what you have to say.
I think you kind of might have a good idea too, man. I mean, I feel terrible because I introduced myself as a Colts fan. I am a ride or die Colts fan, but it's looking really murky for the Colts projections to make the playoffs this year. Obviously we do have Tennessee in our division. This is going to be a division that I just do not think gets two teams out of it to go to the playoffs. We have been decimated by injuries. I think everybody knows that, obviously, with Carson Wentz and Quentin Nelson, but it goes beyond that too. Our O-line, especially on the left side, is just absolutely wrecked. COVID has been a major impact on our team too, and I don't see that changing because we have the lowest vaccination rate amongst the NFL teams. So this is something that you got to pay attention to for all your fantasy teams as well. Just keep an eye at that because that can make a pretty crazy impact. But I mean, the Colts have a brutal schedule, man. We really got screwed. I mean, we're playing some against the hardest teams. And then we got Tampa Bay coming up at the back half of the year. I mean, those first four games, dude, playing against like Seattle, LA, Baltimore, Tennessee. We're getting some really brutal games to start off that year when we might have Jacob Eason under center.
Man, you're really not putting any faith in your boys there in the Colts?
It's tough, dude, because I really
You don't think Carson's going to be back in time to save the day?
At first, when we first did the breakdown of when he got hurt, I was like, okay, it might be like week 9, week 10. And then I was like, shit, maybe we can do something to kind of push us to then. And then it was like he came back and then TY went down and then he had COVID scare because he's not vaccinated. So that's just always going to be hanging over his head. It's just, did he even get a chance to learn our offense? Carson Wentz, as much as I was kind of excited he came here because I didn't really love Phillip Rivers. Dude, he's not that
Phillip
much of
got you to the playoffs, though.
Yeah, man. Exactly, bro. Yeah, and so at this point, I don't know if Carson Wentz is really going to be able to get us over that hump.
Sure. I definitely get where you're coming from. I'm just trying to argue for the sake of argument, but it definitely makes a lot of sense. I think there's a little bit of a dark cloud looming over the Colts right now. I think it's a division that they could come out and be a wild card team in. I still think they have a shot to do so, but I can certainly see, from your viewpoint, why you don't believe the Colts are going to be able to make it to playoffs. And I'll say this much, though. Knowing you as many years as I have, every single year you put doom and gloom into the Colts. So,
I do.
Yeah.
I'm a pessimist, man. I'm a pessimist. That's just how it is, man. Because then when we end up winning, I'm like, at least any sort of win is a big uprise for me.
Sure. When you look at the teams that did make the playoffs last year, I see a lot of these teams going back to playoffs this coming year. You got the Chiefs, Bills, Steelers, Titans, Ravens, Browns, Colts for the AFC. And then on the NFC side, you got the Packers, Saints, Seahawks, Washington football team, the Bucks, Rams, and Bears. So I think, not to go on too much of a tangent, but the obvious choices for me would be the Bears, of course, right? And then maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? And then I also want to mention, I was about to say, I also want to mention the Saints. But if I had to bank on one team out of those guys, I would honestly say the Chicago Bears. Being that they were a wild card team last year, I'm not entirely confident in Matt Nagy as a head coach, right? Like, I'll give Sean Payton the pass, I'll give Mike Tomlin the pass for their teams to at least give them a shot to get into the playoffs. But I'm just not completely sold on the Chicago Bears this year. Now, if our guy Justin Fields comes in there and starts balling out and is showing a lot of promise, then I
Yeah.
can certainly see this team having the pieces that it needs down the road. But for myself at this point in time, I'm going to say the Chicago Bears don't make it back to the playoffs next year, or this coming year, I should say.
Yeah, that's so understandable. I mean, I think a lot
It's
of
an
people
easy
might.
answer, too. It's an easy
Yeah, yeah.
answer. But
And their schedule is brutal. I mean, we highlighted that several times over the offseason. I think the Saints, though, that's another one that's just really,
yeah.
it's just sticking out there. I think both of us are pretty high on the Carolina Panthers. And shit, dude, I think this Atlanta Falcons team, coached by Arthur Smith, I think they're going to be better than a lot of people are giving jobs for.
So are we moving into our next question? What
Yeah.
non-playoff team has the best shot to break into the playoff picture?
Hmm.
Falcons, dude, I got the easy answer again. Arizona Cardinals, man. I mean,
Yeah, you piece of shit.
yeah,
Yeah.
easy answer. I mean, how can you not see, Kyler Murray, potentially pushing that team into the playoffs? I mean, how can you not see potentially every team in that division, excuse me, going to playoffs this year? But
Yeah.
I was really disappointed last year when the Bears made it into the playoffs and the Cardinals did not, because I really wanted
Hmm.
to watch Kyler Murray participate and compete in the playoffs. So that's my easy answer at the moment is the Cardinals. But I'm interested to see what your brain's doing over there with what other teams might make it in this
Right.
year.
Yeah, right in their division, man. My Super Bowl pick or my NFC Super Bowl pick, San Francisco 49ers. I
Yeah,
think regardless of who's quarterback, whether it's Trey Lance, who I think is the clear-cut best quarterback in that locker room, or if it's Jimmy Garoppolo, who I think is a proven leader and can bring them there again, I think this is a team that, I'm hoping that they finally stay healthy here. Got Trey Sermon and Raheem Mostert, a dual-headed backfield that is just scary. Got George Kittle, my number 2 tight end on the year fantasy-wise. This is going to be a very dangerous offense. I mean, if you get all these like high skilled offensive players back on the field and healthy, you got Bosa rushing the quarterback.
yeah.
This is a nightmare type of team here.
Yeah, it's a great answer. It's probably an easier answer than the Cardinals, if we're being honest, right? I mean, it's such a stacked team, and obviously last year they just kind of the injuries is what plagued them, right? And I'll throw one more team out there. The Dallas Cowboys certainly have a chance to make
Yeah.
the playoffs this year, but I'm still sticking with my bold prediction from our NFC East podcast that the Washington football team will win that division. So we'll see what happens, but let's move on. Let's see. Who's your MVP coming into this year? I'm curious to see what you say here.
So we've talked kind of at length this offseason as well again about this man, Tom Brady. I think everything's kind of going in his favor right now in terms of a narrative. I don't see Tom Brady, beating, and winning the Super Bowl necessarily, as we'll get to that later on. But I do think he can win the regular season MVP. I think this Buccaneers team is fully healthy, fully loaded. We're going to probably see Antonio Brown closest to his peak in terms of his performance for a long time. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to see this guy just go out there and gunsling it, which is why I'm targeting him in all my fantasy drafts. But shit, dude. I mean, I don't know. It's hard for me to go away from Tom Brady on this end.
Yeah, it's hard, man. It's hard to really sit down. I mean, as much as I want to say like a skill position player, right? It just
It's
seems
never going to happen,
yeah,
bro. It's always a
that's
quarterback.
we'll save that for offensive player of the year, right? Because it's always a quarterback, right? So
Yeah.
I think Tom Brady's a great answer. I can certainly, the other easy answer is obviously Patrick Mahomes, right? I think those, at this point in time, those are the top two guys that I would imagine, right?
Mhm.
But to throw another name out there, I honestly think Kyler Murray could be up there, and I think that Josh Allen as well are two other guys that we have to think
Yeah.
about at this point in time. But it's always a quarterback, and it's hard to say, right? Because when you think about last year, as good as Aaron Rodgers was, it seemed like a guy like Josh Allen deserved it. But and then even with Kansas City wasn't as flashy last year, but you can still argue that Patrick Mahomes deserved it last year. You could argue a guy like Russell Wilson deserved it last year as well. So it's well, I mean, when you just look at, dude, Seattle was abysmal last year, right?
Yeah, towards the back half of the year, he just fell off, and I
Yeah,
mean, but
sure.
before that, yeah, record-setting pace, bro.
Well, when I think MVP, I still think who is the most valuable player to their team? Who is
Hmm.
a player that the entire team revolves around? And I think year after year, Russell Wilson displays that, right?
He's up there for sure.
Yeah. But so I'm just making, argument for sake of argument. But I think I agree with you on this one, man. I think that at the moment I see Tom Brady the most likely candidate,
Yeah,
which pains me to say, right?
it
But
does, dude. It really does.
it'll be such an interesting time in football when we're no longer talking about Tom
Oh
Brady.
my
But
gosh.
at this
It's
point,
kind of sad because that's the end of an era for people our age,
yeah,
man.
yeah,
When Tom Brady finally isn't there, but shit, you know what? I've been saying that exact thing for 5 years. So
yeah.
who
That's what I'm
knows if
saying.
it
It
ever
it
happens?
could be another 5 years before that
Yeah.
time comes. So,
y-
uh,
Seriously
yeah,
though.
yeah. Nonetheless, as we mentioned, who's your offensive player of the year candidate moving into this season? I think this is a tougher answer to come up with.
This is a really tough one. Honestly, I love this Cowboys offense, and I feel like because they had hard knocks, maybe there's a chance there. If Zeke really has like one of his breakout years again, but I don't know, man. I just think that this Carolina Panthers team, I'm very excited about it. I do think Sam Darnold's going to open it up a little bit more. I think they're going to have a good chance to win a lot more games and get more highlight, get more experience. So I
Yeah.
see my boy Christian McCaffrey coming out and winning Offensive Player of the Year. Derrick Henry's kind of owned that Offensive Player of the Year for a while now, and I feel like Christian McCaffrey is going to come in there, own it. He's going to have one of his best years of his career, and just show us all why he is truly the 101 in fantasy and is the best running back in the league.
Man, I will disagree with you because I think what's going to happen is Christian McCaffrey is going to end up getting comeback player of the year.
That's
And
good.
then, yeah, yeah, which I'll let you throw out a candidate. I'll let you think about that too, because we don't have that on our list here. But I think he's more likely to win an award like that. And then
Hmm.
I think a guy who's going to have a lot more responsibility on his hands and be a much more focal part of his offense is that of Alvin Kamara, who might
Hmm.
have an opportunity to have a season like he's never had before, and he has had some fascinating seasons as a running back. So I'll put Kamara as my guy. And I want to say Henry, man. Part of me wants to just say Derrick Henry's going to come out and have a two-peat at Offensive Player of the Year award, but I don't know, man. I'll say Kamara for now. I mean, I like the selection of Christian McCaffrey, absolutely, and I think he could be deservingly so. But they always seem to they don't want to give players too many awards, and I think
I
that
know, I
I
know.
think
That is kind
CMC,
of the one thing about that.
yeah, I think he's got a better opportunity to get comeback player of the year. Do you have any candidates for comeback player of the year?
Honestly, man, I don't because I think coming into the season, and this
Carson
goes
Wentz.
no, but that's who it was coming into the year. I think that was kind of my clear cut guy. And I think he still does have a really good chance to do it, even if he comes back and he's relatively mediocre or average. So I think this guy would still be the person I'm throwing to the ring right there is a Carson Wentz, just because let's say he comes back week 2, week 3, he's got a full year to just, prove to people that, he's not as bad as he was in Philly. I mean, this guy was like the 32nd worst quarterback in the league. Like, he was awful. So, I'm hoping, and you know what? If he wins it, that's good for me because that means the Colts are not just absolute dirt. So, shit,
Yeah.
yeah, he's my comeback player of the year, man.
There you go. So let's switch over to the defensive side of things. I'll start for this one, and I've got. I mean, obviously the easy answer is Aaron Donald, who it just feels like
Every year.
every year he's going to be the guy to do it. But I would throw T.J. Watt into the conversation at this
Yeah.
point. I mean, he has been in the conversation. Uh, I see those two guys as the most likely, and then I would probably throw Nick Bosa in there as well. And I feel like those are all really easy answers. And they probably took away like at least one of the guys you were thinking of. But when I look at Defensive Player of the Year awards at the past couple years outside of Stephon Gilmore, it's primarily been edge rushers or D tackles, and
Mhm.
I just think those are arguably the best three in the league. I can't really think of anyone else that I'd put up there at the moment.
What about the Steelers quarterback head basher Miles Garrett, baby? Because that's my
Yeah,
pick.
yeah,
I
that's a
mean,
great pick. Yeah, I was sitting here saying I was like, I know I'm missing someone. Who the fuck am I
yeah,
missing?
but dude, the
Yeah,
Cleveland Browns, man, they are loaded,
yeah, that's a
man.
great. That's I'll let you emphasize on it because you brought it up. But man, did they add some pieces to that defense? It's going to really allow Miles Garrett to eat this year, man.
Yeah, I just think the fact that they bring on guys like Jadeveon Clowney, who's
Yeah,
kind of been like a meme this offseason.
yeah,
He had like this really bad video come out where he fell over a duffel like a dummy bag or whatever and busted his ass, and then he made some comment about guards being unathletic. It was just like he's been kind of a disaster in the offseason, but guy's a killer, man, and he's going to take up so much concentration of the O line. Miles Garrett was on like record shattering pace last year before he got like offset at the back half of the year with COVID and everything. So I'm excited for Miles Garrett to come back. I'm excited for this Browns team. I'm really pushing. They're kind of the team that I'm most excited about. I want them to win the Super Bowl. That's like it would just be awesome for football in general. Awesome for the city of Cleveland. But needless to say, I just want to see Miles Garrett and him play against the Pittsburgh Steelers twice a year again, dude. I'm waiting for that, dude.
I do love Miles Garrett. I mean, part of me wants to say that he's underrated, man. I mean,
He
and I
is.
just
It's
forgot
because he's
about
a
him, right?
quiet killer, bro. He's a quiet killer.
Yeah, I think the addition of Jadeveon Clowney has been kind of underrated as well. I mean, let's not forget what Jadeveon Clowney can do off the edge, especially against the run game. I mean,
Hmm.
you're gonna have a tough time lining up against that Cleveland Browns team, offensively and defensively. And just a side note, I still feel like the Browns are being kind of underrated as a whole as a team. Like,
They are.
I'm not hearing a lot of buzz around the Browns, and man, I think they're going to surprise a lot of people this year. I think they've got a good chance to win that division overall too.
I think they have a good chance to go all the way this year. We'll talk more about that later on, but I think the reason that they're underrating this Cleveland Browns team is because of Baker Mayfield. People don't believe in him. I was just gonna say it's going to our 100 subscriber guys. So go ahead and click that sub button because
Yeah.
you get that, you can get Mr. Dangerous.
So let's get into. I want to save some of that Browns hype for just a little bit
Yeah.
longer. But who do you have? This I'm interested to hear you say. I have a good idea, right? But who's your offensive rookie of the year?
So I feel like I know where you think I'm going with this.
Yeah,
And I've been kind of all over the place with how I
it's
view these
hard, man.
rookies.
Yeah, it's
It
hard.
is. It is hard. And I think at the end of the day, you kind of come back to who's given the most opportunity from the beginning because all these guys this year are so talented. It's such
Yeah,
a great group of quarterbacks this season. And honestly, I'm thankful because we need more guys coming in. I always want to see a new stock of quarterbacks come in. But it's fucking Trevor Lawrence, dude. It's
I
just Trevor.
100% agree. Yep.
Yeah, it's just I think at the end of the day, a lot of people kind of just stopped talking about him because everyone just kind of took him like for granted. It was just like this guy's the next John Elway. This guy is the chosen one at quarterback. So it's like we're gonna see that come game day. We're gonna see his luscious flow flowing out there and him just throwing dime pieces all over the field. And at the end of the day, I don't see him losing it. And it's his job, it's his freaking award to lose, honestly, because
Sure.
ESPN wants him to win it. Everybody giving their awards out wants him to win it.
Yeah. And I completely agree. And in reality, I think that Najee Harris is probably going to end up, you know, in
He's gonna be so good this year, man.
he's going to deserve it, right? Similar to this might be a bold statement the year, Saquon versus our guy Baker when they were kind of head
Yeah.
to head. And I think that Trevor Lawrence, being that he's a quarterback, is going to win it. But I think that
Hmm.
Najee Harris is going to have just as good of a year overall. So
I totally agree.
yeah, so but it's always going to go to a quarterback, and I do believe and I do agree that Trevor Lawrence is going to be the person best suited with the most opportunity to come out and win the award. And it'll be interesting to see. We've seen Baker come out, and then a guy like Justin Herbert come out. Can Trevor Lawrence, match, those amount of touchdown passes? Because
Hmm.
that's going to be a big determination and if he wins Offensive Rookie of the Year or not. So, but nonetheless, do you have any candidates for Defensive Rookie of the Year? Because, dude, there are some killer cornerbacks in this class on some really good teams. And then, your boy Kwity Paye on the Colts has a chance.
He's a beast, dude. He is
Yeah,
really good. I love that pick out of Michigan, man. The guy is just an absolute bull rusher. Doesn't stop going after the quarterback until the play's over, and even after that, he's still hunting. I love
yeah.
Kwity Paye, man.
Dude,
But that's not my pick.
who's your pick? I'm interested to hear.
Yeah, it's with your team, the Broncos. Patrick Surtain, dude, out of Alabama. That corner is an absolute
Yeah,
dog, man. Pick 6 in his first live action preseason game.
yeah,
This dude is an absolute lockdown corner, a kind of guy that could be like a Champ Bailey, Jalen Ramsey type of guy. And he does it just with absolute perfect technique. He can
yeah.
shut down any receiver. And this Denver Broncos team is built with pass rush and secondary. As you know, man, you're a
Yeah.
huge fan, but it's like, dude, this guy is a dog, man. I can't wait to see him.
A guy that I'm thinking about in a very similar situation is Greg Newsome the second on the Browns. He's going to
I
be
love him.
on
Yeah.
the flip side of our guy Denzel Ward, and he's going to have Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney. We just talked about supplying pressure. I think he's going to have an opportunity to have a really good rookie year overall. But I want to talk about Micah Parsons as well, who's been pretty heavily featured in Hard Knocks, but also
I love that you bringing him up, dude. He's a
hey,
boss, bro.
listen, man, this guy replaced two veterans that no one expected to be replaced in that linebacking corp, right? Like, we don't really know what's going to happen with some of the linebackers on the Cowboys, if they're going to be on this team, come the trade deadline or not,
Mhm.
because Micah Parsons is a starter, which is crazy, man. I mean, Jalen Smith and our guy Vander Esch, like, they're sitting on the
Yeah.
bench to allow this guy to come out. And interesting
Hmm.
enough, Keanu Neal, but I think that has a lot to do with Dan Quinn and you know,
He's such a good athlete, bro.
yeah,
You
yeah.
can't sleep on that,
And it's
bro.
awesome because
He's
that's a
nice.
guy I always put at linebacker in Madden, man. So
I
it's
know.
like I'm
His hit
like,
power is insane. It's like Jamal
yeah,
Adams.
I'm like, is this real? But that's another guy who I think is going to have a really good opportunity to be consistently noticed throughout the year. And then staying in that same division, Jamon Davis on the Washington football team, he's just going to
Love
have an
him.
opportunity to
Hmm.
get a shit ton of tackles and a fair amount of sacks and some turnovers.
He's a carbon copy cutout of Darius Leonard, the linebacker for the
Yeah,
Indianapolis Colts. I wanted him so bad in the draft this year. I was thankful we got Kwity Paye and everything, but this is the guy I wanted.
yeah.
So I'm glad he ended up with Washington, my second favorite team. So at least I could get to, watch him and root for him.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
good defensive rookies. I'm
Yeah.
glad that we didn't really talk about that beforehand, so I'm glad we were able to bounce off each other like that. But I felt this boiling in your blood on our last question, so let's move on. We're just going to do it right in the middle of these questions instead of towards the end. Who wins the Super Bowl this coming year? Because I can't decide, man. I really can't. I'll
It's
put
really
out an
tough.
answer, but I want to hear what you have to say first, man.
I think, yeah, I mean, these are one of those things where we saw how the Buccaneers did it this year. It was via depth, right? Depth and having a veteran quarterback who can win in many situations, right? So I think the answers I was talking about earlier, you're probably like, oh, is he going to say the Browns? Like, what the fuck? But I think with the Browns, as much as I do love Baker Mayfield, I'm still not sure if him and Odell and Jarvis Landry can really go out there and beat some of the guys that they're going to have to beat to win it all.
Sure.
I do think this is a team, though, that is built exactly the way you need to be built to beat a team like Kansas City, which is run the ball, drain the clock, and just finish it out that way. My pick, though, this year is going to be Kansas City. Super vanilla. I hate being vanilla, so I'll explain it to you, explain why that is. I think this Kansas City football team would have won the Super Bowl last year, too. I think they should have won the Super Bowl. It really just came down to the fact that their O-line was absolutely shredded at the wrong time. And what happened? Well, Tampa Bay came in fully healthy, fully loaded off of a huge winning streak. And it was just that time of year, man. Tom Brady came in. I mean, it's hard not to say Tom Brady and the Buccaneers are going to win it this year.
Yeah.
But here's the bottom line, dude. I still think Patrick Mahomes, if he's in any game, I'm still taking the edge on him, no matter who he's playing against. The only thing that goes in Tom Brady's favor is fuck, he's got the refs in his pocket.
Well, let me ask you this then: who's the opponent in that Super Bowl game on the NFC side of things?
I mean, I've been kind of ringing that bell for a while now. I do think it's going to be the San Francisco 49ers. I love this team. I could see a rematch, man.
Yeah,
I,
rematch.
I actually do see it. And the reason I think that is just because this San Francisco 49ers team could eliminate what the Buccaneers are so good at, which is pass rush. But the way Kyle Shanahan coaches his team is he spreads you out horizontally and eliminates your pass rush. And then let's say they also have Trey Lance cooking with Diesel. Well, you got their running backs wide open running lanes because you're also having to watch Trey Lance on these read options. And Raheem Mostert's the fastest running back in the NFL. And then you got Trey Sermon who's ready to pound you in the fucking mouth, bro. So it's really like when I look at this team, I mean, they are locked and loaded and fully healthy, dude. And, another knock on Tampa Bay is, dude, like the one thing that you can count on year over year is negative regression at defense. This Tampa Bay defense is not going to be the same as next year. They're just not going to be. I mean, you're relying on Ndamukong Suh and Jason Pierre-Paul, who are way old in age, to be just as lethal as they were. And you're relying on a defense to be just like absolute top notch. It's just not going to happen, guys. I'm sorry. The only person you can really rely on is this offense, which is still going to be very strong next year.
It's a really tough decision looking at some of these teams for next year. So part of me just wants to say the Buccaneers and the Chiefs, right? But
yeah,
what I'll do is I'll give two teams that I think from each division outside of those two teams who can also make it, because I have no idea at the moment.
Yeah,
which some people might not like, but it's really tough this year, man. But I'll say on the AFC side of things, I certainly can see the Cleveland Browns getting there. But really, when you look like outside of the Browns and the Chiefs, the only other team that I can really think of is the Bills, right?
Yeah.
And I think those three teams are on a tier like way higher than the rest of the AFC in terms of like being able to win some playoff games and being able to get to the championship game and get to the Super Bowl as well. Those are like the only two teams that I can see beating the Chiefs and making it into the Super Bowl. And I don't think they'd be doing it in like beautiful fashion. Like I think if those are the kind of final teams towards the end, it's going to be some really good football games in the playoffs this year. And then I would sprinkle in the Titans as like the next in the top four, but man, I don't see the Titans as a full playoff team. Like I love that offense. You guys know that I love Derrick Henry. I think you've made some good points about if one of those guys goes down, whether it's Tannehill, AJ Brown / Julio, or Derrick Henry, like they're not a good football team. That defense, I'm not a fan of their defense, man. And I love Mike Vrabel. Like, he's one of my favorite linebackers. He's like one of the only Patriots players that I always liked,
dog, dude.
that I could never dislike, And I was so happy when he became a head coach. And I'm still to this day surprised. Like, they've done some good stuff with their front seven. They've had some flashes in the secondary, but overall, they were very, very poor against the pass last year. And I just don't know, man. I think that's probably the next best team, but I don't think they're complete enough. And I'm interested to see what team we're not talking about creeps up this year. I mean, what would be the coolest Super Bowl possible would be the New England Patriots versus Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
It would be. It would be.
I mean, our guy Mac and Cheese comes out, and he's a real offensive rookie of the year, and he comes out looking like Justin Herbert 2.0. And
10-1 odds, I think. You can get him at right now, so it might have came down a little bit, but he's a good chance, dude. Yeah, he's a good chance.
It's tough, man, and for the NFC, really, when I'm looking at things outside of the Buccaneers,
Rams.
I like your pick of the Niners a lot, but I'm a little bit higher on the Rams overall. And then the next team I want to talk about is the Packers, man.
Yeah,
I'm like, I'm a little bit more of a romantic than you are, I think, right? Like I'm more of like dreamer, and the idea of Aaron Rodgers being in this Last Dance finale as he's claimed it, right? Like
Oh,
I
it'd be so perfect.
yeah, I'm willing to like fall in love with that idea
Yeah.
and watch Aaron Rodgers make it to the Super Bowl. But I don't think that team is as complete. But I think they're very close, actually. Like I think they're a lot better than like the Titans we just talked about. But man, when I'm looking at this Rams roster, defense and offense, I
It's
think the
preloaded.
the offense is weaker overall. I think Sean McVay uh, is a very, very good coach,
Mhm.
right? And I think he can work with this offense. Obviously, there's some problems at the running back position, but when you look at what this defense is going to be able to do, man, I I think that's what gives them the edge overall to be able to beat some of these other teams who have it a little bit better on the offensive side of things. So I like your pick of the Niners a lot. I would probably put
Mhm.
them like right there with these teams, and I don't know, man. It's an interesting year. I really, really think it is. There's a lot of question marks. We're kind of seeing a little bit of a shift with some veteran players getting towards the end of their career. We're kind of seeing some guys who uh, are considered veterans, but kind of in the middle of their career get closer to the end stage of their career. Then we're seeing a lot of young guys flood in.
Yeah, we're seeing
Yeah,
that young rush, and shit,
yeah,
it's good for the league, man.
yeah.
We need it. We need it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's top off just the NFL debate side of things before moving to some fantasy questions for the year. We're going to jump to which week 1 game are you most looking forward to? I'm going to let you answer first because I already know your answer and you don't know mine. So let's get
Yeah,
to it, man.
dude. Yeah, I mean, just the two AFC teams that I just talked about, man.
Yeah.
Chiefs Browns week 1, dude. That is just going to be insane. We talked about it earlier when we went over. I think that was this on the. I think it was on the AFC North podcast. Actually, we talked about how we both think the
Yeah.
Browns are going to come out here and beat the Chiefs week 1.
Very likely.
And
Yeah.
and shit, I'm excited for it, dude, because you've got smash mouth football just gonna come out there, run it down your mouth 30 times. And you got Patrick Mahomes who's gonna fucking launch it deep to Tyreek Hill. It's gonna be a battle of philosophies, a battle of strategy. And these two teams have built their teams completely differently. So I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see Odell Beckham. Is he fully healthy? Is he ready to go? And shit, I'm excited to see Nick Chubb too, man.
Oh
A
yeah.
guy who I think can be, you know what? I mean, let me ask you, like, do you think he is like a top 3 running back in the league? Taking out fantasy, I think he is. Like,
Oh
I,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's even
I
much debate there. He's very
yeah.
underrated though.
Well, that's what we've talked about. He's extremely underrated. If he was I don't want to say on a different team. Maybe if he just wasn't injured as much. Maybe if he didn't have
Yeah,
Kareem Hunt looming over him in that backfield. Like this guy is as good as any running back in the league. I mean, he's like you've phrased it before. He's a smaller Derrick Henry, right?
hmm
He's got all the moves. Like he's like a Madden glitch, right? I mean, he's got the spin moves. He's got the truck moves. He's got the speed. He's got the juke moves. I love watching Nick Chubb, man. That's one of the reasons why I like drafting him in fantasy is because I just enjoy watching him as a football player. So it makes me more excited when he's on my fantasy team, similar to Derrick Henry. I'm like, I just want to have a guy that I like from a fantasy perspective and I'm confident in, but also have a
yeah,
guy that I like as a football player because as much as
hmm
you and I both love fantasy football, we love football overall more. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
when you can
exactly, yeah.
when you can root for a fantasy player who's gonna get you a shit ton of fantasy points, but you can also root for them as a football player, it makes it that much more enjoyable. So yeah, man. I mean, I love Nick Chubb. Come on, the Chubster.
Dude, it's just gonna be. I cannot wait for
Yeah,
week 1, bro. It's gonna be
yeah.
nuts, dude. It's so close too, man. It's so fucking close.
I've got a really easy answer for mine. I'm gonna be very vanilla on this one. I am most excited for Thursday night football, September
Yep.
9th, Dallas Cowboys at the Buccaneers. And I think
What a
this
perfect game for them to
yeah.
pick, dude.
And that's what I'm kind of alluding to is this wouldn't have probably been my original selection, but I kind of really enjoyed watching Hard Knocks this season or
hmm
preseason, and I really want to watch Dak come out. and I want to see because we've seen him. He's not playing. He's got the shoulder thing going on, and I want to see him unleashed. I want to see him ready to take on the league and prove why he got the bag last year and come back from that injury. Because that's my biggest takeaway from Hard Knocks is like I've always liked Dak Prescott and I've always liked Zeke. And after watching Hard Knocks this preseason, I like both of them a lot more than I already did. I like them as
Yeah,
people, and I want to watch Dak succeed. And I want to watch the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense versus the Dallas Cowboys offense. Like, let's
it's
be
gonna be
real.
so much fun.
I
It's
think
gonna be
both of these
lights out.
defenses are going to play well, but I think that this is a chance of a game to have 30,
Shootout.
30 plus points for each team, man.
Hmm.
And I think those dynamics make it, the most exciting for me. And it'll be a good kind of test for the Buccaneers and them being able to prove themselves as, arguably the best team in the league and coming off of that Super Bowl win as well. But I'll throw you a couple other games that excite me too, man. Seattle Seahawks at the Indianapolis Colts. Just watching the Seahawks eat up on your Colts team. But just kidding. But in all seriousness, man, I think that's a really important game for your team because we know that the Colts offense is going to perform poorly, right? That's the
Yeah,
assumption. But
yeah.
you being Mr. Doom and Gloom, in reality, Seattle's got a bad defense, man. And I think that the Colts have a chance to come out and establish themselves as a team that's not fucking around and a team that's waiting for their starters to get on the
Yeah.
field, or at least their starting quarterback. And I think that they might be able to win that game, man. And I think the interesting thing is Seattle's, going to come out and be offensively good, but your Colts defense isn't something to mess around with. So
They're
from
lights out. Yeah, that defense light out. Yeah,
from
for
a
sure.
football perspective, I'm interested in watching some of the dynamics of that game,
Hmm.
which kind of brings me to there's a couple other games that I really like. I like the Steelers at the Bills is going to be fun. Cardinals at Titans is going to be fun. Uh,
Dolphins Patriots, Mr.
that's
Mac and Cheese versus Tua, bro.
that's what I was getting at,
Yeah,
bro. Like
yeah.
from a football perspective, I'm really interested to watch that game and a lot of the things going on. And you hit it right on the dot,
Yeah.
man. Tua time versus Mac and Cheese. Like I could not be more excited to watch two
Alabama
quarterbacks.
quarterbacks, bro.
Yeah,
They were
yeah,
teammates. I mean,
yeah.
this is
It's
gonna be.
crazy.
You got Jalen Waddle there, who was teammates with them both too. I mean, this is gonna be a lot of fun, man. I'm excited for that too. I'm excited for that too.
Packers and Saints is going to be good.
Ah,
I well,
Jameis, man, it's just I
hey,
can't get behind Jameis, bro. I don't know what it
hey,
is, dude.
hey. I
But
think
bro, hey, I
Jameis.
feel I'm devastated for the city of New Orleans. So I hope they
Yeah.
come out there and I hope they play their asses off,
Oh yeah.
dude. I mean,
Jameis.
I'm gonna be pulling for them.
Yeah, absolutely, 100% agree with that. So it's going to be a fun season, man. I think we're
Yeah,
both
it
super
is.
pumped. So let's move on to some more, fantasy aspects, because obviously we've been diving a lot deeper into fantasy over the last month or so, and these are kind of like your big fantasy questions. Maybe not all of them, but most of them. So I'll throw it to you for the first question. Who's your fantasy MVP on the year?
Fantasy MVP.
It's
Shit,
tough.
man. It is tough. And you know what? I'm going with Aaron Jones, running back for the Green Bay Packers. The
Interesting.
reason for that is it's pretty grounded in the fact that I want a major piece of this offense, no matter how I can get it. But I think you're getting the number one running back and maybe also a 3 down running back for this Green Bay Packers team. Because now that Jamal Williams is gone, we've hit this drum multiple times, dude. He is now the main pass catching back there. He's the only pass catching back, and he's also elite first and second down back too. I think he's going to see a ton of touchdown upside. He's got big play written all over him. You can get him like around pick 6, pick 7, which allows for you to take another really good tailback in round 2 as well. So I think he's going to be your MVP guy because I think you're getting him ahead of, or maybe not ahead of some other guys like Zeke Elliott, Nick Chubb, or other people like that, but he's going to deliver more value. And I think they're going to really try to drive this guy to the ground because they gave him the bag, bro. And this is the last dance. This is Aaron Rodgers' last attempt to get that Super Bowl ring back.
I've got a guy very similar because it kind of I don't know, man. I feel like it has to be a running back, right? Like the running back position's got the opportunity to put up the most points, but I'm thinking of Nick Chubb here, man, because what I think Nick Chubb can do this season is really a reflection of what I think the Browns are going to be able to do this season from an offensive standpoint. And I think Nick Chubb's going to have an opportunity to come out and really move himself. I mean, last year we saw him as kind of like an RB 10 through 12. You're able to
Mhm.
get him. And, I paired him with Derrick Henry last year for crying out loud, right? And, after last year, we've seen him move up to like a RB 6, 7, 8 kind of area. And my feeling is after this coming season, he's going to establish himself as like a RB3,
Mhm.
4, maybe even all the way up to RB1 or 2. And I think he's going to have the opportunity to just be lights out this year. I think that Browns offense is going to be a lot better. I think their defense as a whole is going to allow their offense to be a lot better, but especially Nick Chubb, because uh, I don't think this team is going to have to play from behind as much because the defense has improved. And I think that Nick Chubb's going to be able to really be the focal point in the beginning of football games for this offense, right? And I don't know, man. I just got a feeling that he's been moving up in the tiers in the
I
past two
love Nick
years.
Chubb. Yeah, I
Yeah,
love Nick
yeah.
Chubb, dude.
I
I
know we
mean,
just
I
talked
think
about him, but
both our MVPs, I think, are guys that you can literally stack your whole team on, bro. I mean, Aaron Jones, massive touchdown potential. His floor touchdowns going to be high. His ceiling's going to be high. Nick Chubb, same thing.
yeah, that's how I feel. Yeah.
Both these guys are probably the lead candidates to lead the league in touchdowns rushing next year, in my opinion. So, I don't think you can go wrong with either of these guys as your lead tailback.
Yeah, I like both of our picks there a lot. And, you know, let's move on to our sleeper picks of the year because I have no idea who you're going to say here. And I've been like all over some sleepers, over the past month or so. So I'm interested to see who your top sleeper is because there's a lot of ways we could do this. We could go position by position, right? But it's hard to pick just one guy that you really want to talk about.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, I think it also depends a little bit on how you draft. So my sleeper kind of parlays with the fact that I'm so running back heavy. So my sleeper is wide receiver for the New York Jets, Corey Davis. I just think this is a guy who has been an absolute target hog over
Yeah.
preseason, paired up with Zach Wilson, who has probably been the most outstanding quarterback in preseason so far, which is pretty crazy to say. I
Sure.
damn sure did not think that was going to be the case, but this guy looks pretty electric. He can make any pass you need him to. And this New York Jets line is a lot more built up than it once was. So I don't know, man. The fact that Adam Gase is gone, this is a new regime. It's got a Matt LaFleur type of vibe at offensive like play calling. So I don't know, man. I think it's Corey Davis. You can get him so late, dude. You're getting
Yeah.
him like round 8, round 9, round 10. I mean, this is a guy who could be maybe in your like wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 rankings when all things are said and done.
Yeah, I think it's a great pick. I still don't understand at this point in time why he's still being considered a sleeper.
This
Like
is a fucking jet, dude.
I
Nobody
yeah,
wants
I
it.
get that.
Nobody
I get
wants
that
that.
part. Yeah, and I get it,
Yeah.
but I'm still like, okay, just give people who are more aware wide receiver one much later in a draft. It's just it happens year after year with a lot of different guys, right? And it just doesn't
Mhm.
make a lot of sense to me. But yeah, it's a great selection, and I've got way too many sleepers to narrow this
I know
down.
you
I mean,
love them.
that's what I've been looking into. I mean, all off season slash
That's how
preseason,
you win
right?
your drafts, man. Those
Yeah,
late round sleepers. That's how you get
yeah.
it.
I mean, at like the tight end position, I've got a lot of guys I really
Yeah.
like. I mean, I still haven't seen a lot of love for Robert Tonyan out there, of the Green Bay Packers at the tight end position. And I just think, I don't think he's going to be able to repeat those 11 touchdowns from last year, but I think
Mhm.
he should be in the same conversation as guys like Mark Andrews and TJ Hawkinson and Kyle Pitts. And he should be a lot higher up there. And you're getting him, depending on where you draft from, sometimes after guys like Dallas Goddard and Tyler Higbee and Logan Thomas, and I like all of those guys, but nonetheless, I don't think Robert Tanyan's getting enough love right now, which is okay with me because he's one of my top targets, right? And then
Yeah.
there's some running backs that I'm really thinking about mentioning here that I don't know if they're necessarily sleepers, but yeah, I'm gonna be boring and just go with the tight end for now because there's so many wide receivers I could bring up, right? Like you mentioned Corey Davis, but our guy Callaway on the Saints, right? You brought up Michael Pittman, recently at the wide receiver position, who
Love
uh,
him too, man. That's my other guy right there.
Tyrell Williams on the the fucking Lions. I'm like,
Yeah.
he's still a wide receiver 1, man, and
He's the only one we're
yeah.
standing, basically.
So like I'll draft him all day, man, because he presents wide receiver 1 value no matter what team he's on. But I got to mention Jerry Judy here. I mean, that's been my sleeper
Can you
guy.
keep him as a sleeper anymore, dude? And I mean, dude,
He's
he's
going
kind
up
of
and
going.
up, man. Yeah.
I was in a mock draft earlier today, and he was like round 5. I mean,
Yeah.
This guy's going quick now. I
think,
don't know if he's a sleeper anymore.
I think it's all my fault. I think I should have stayed quiet about that.
Damn it, John. Damn it, John. We should have done this podcast next year so I could draft him.
Yeah. Ramantra Stevenson on the Patriots.
I love his potential. I love his potential there. I mean, this is a guy that's going undrafted. Yeah, I love his. When you're looking at the way the Patriots just run the football too, it's always a split committee. But the thing is, Ramantra Stevenson is the most well-bit for touchdowns. So I think this guy comes out here. He's going to probably lead the team in rushing touchdowns.
Pat F on the Steelers. Don't sleep on my guy, Pat.
That's your
F,
boy,
man. You're gonna regret it. I'm telling you, man. And don't sleep on Big Mac either, man. Mac Cheese might. I know there's a lot of
You're
debate.
playing Dynasty. I love him.
And I've come out and said it too. The way that offense is ran. You look at some of Tom Brady's numbers. In recent years. He doesn't have to be dynamic, doesn't have to be great, doesn't have to throw for 40 touchdowns to be successful in that offense. So, I don't know. I'm kind of torn, but I could also see. I think I just really like Mac Jones, man. I think
you do too. And I think before we jump to the next question, kind of going off of Mac Jones, sleeper tight end, Jonnu Smith. Hunter Henry's always hurt, man. Jonnu Smith's in my top 12 tight end rankings. It's a guy who's damn sure one of the most athletic players on this New England Patriots team. Super fast tight end, was amazing for Tennessee. That's like my guy for you last year. So this guy's a total badass, man. And I can't wait to see the way Bill Belichick uses him.
And we accidentally skipped over. We'll go retrospect here in our questions. So who's your fantasy my guy? Because I kind of answer that with Jerry Judy. Right, that's really that has to be my guy, and Robert Tonyan probably has to be one of my guys too. But the one other name we'll throw out there before you answer is hands down David Montgomery. David Montgomery.
You've been banging that drum all fucking off season, bro.
Yeah, and I gotta stick with it. But that's the guy that I want on all of my rosters, and if I don't get him, man, I'd be really sad inside. But I also will tell you that James Robinson is now kind of right
jumping up there
with David Montgomery. I want one of those guys on my roster, and I'm willing to pay pretty hefty price for it. But I'll let you get an answer in here as well.
Yeah, shout out Made for TV. It's not going to be Brandon Ayuk, even though I was, hammering away at him. Shout out San Francisco 49ers. But no, it's Scary Terry. This is my guy this year. I cannot be more excited about any wide receiver out there. This is the kind of guy that I'm looking at to be the first wide receiver I draft in all my drafts. And you got to get him kind of around that round 3, round 4 mark. I think that's the perfect spot because this is a guy who can easily break into the top 8 wide receivers, electric speed, make any catch. His route running is unmatched. His target volume is going to be absurd with Ryan Fitzpatrick, who hammers that wide receiver 1 spot. I mean, we broke down Scary Terry at length in our NFC East podcast, but dude, I'm not more excited about any player this year, regardless of position, than Scary Terry.
I like it. I love me some Scary Terry Harry, you know what I'm saying? So with that being said, who's your biggest bust or most overrated draft pick at the moment that you're seeing?
Honestly, dude, I'm very hesitant about guys such as Hawkinson. Hawkinson scares me, man. He scares me. I think people are drafting him early. They're drafting him ahead of. I've seen sometimes people draft him ahead of George Kittle, Mark Andrews. I've seen a lot of rankings out there with guys taking Hawkinson before those 2 guys as well. And for me, it's like, are you really willing to spend a round 5 draft pick on a Detroit Lion and who has really, I mean, yeah, he was good last year. I'm not going to shit on him, but this is a guy who is already injured. And I just don't want a whole lot of pieces of this Detroit Lions team as a starter and where I'm going to have to spend. He is the only piece. Yeah. And so I think maybe one of the reasons why I find him to be such a bust is because you're drafting him so high. And there's a couple stay away teams for me. And
The
one of them,
Lions? Come on, man. The
yeah,
Lions?
yeah, I know. The Texans to stay away. The Detroit Lions to stay away. The Cincinnati Bengals is becoming over time a stay away team for me in draft boards now. Even though they have like some of those really good receivers, you start looking at teams and you just start to realize over time, shitty offense is not going to bring you that much of a good fortune.
I've got a big one for you, man. I'm gonna have one that you really don't like here that we've gone over a little bit before, and I do like this player a lot, and a lot of people are gonna give me hate for this. Austin Eckler. That's my pick, man. Yeah.
What's your reasoning for it though?
I want a running back whose primary role in their offense is to run the football, not catch the football. And
okay.
that's
Even
just
though
where
that's not what modern day fantasy football values, right?
Sure.
You're like an outdated 80-year-old. Do you people are you playing Scrabble after this?
You're the one who makes us play half PPR, man. He's not that valuable to me, man. He's just not.
That's a good point.
He's just not, man.
Dude, he is the most modern day type of back. I mean, I could get the argument about injuries. I could get the argument about
too.
He's not necessarily a goal line back. But dude, I don't know. I just don't he was in my top 12 and I would be very surprised if he fell out of top 14.
I want all those other guys on our running back ranking videos that I went over before I went Austin Eckler. That's just where I'm at.
So what do you think about my pick taking Hawkinson as my bust of the year?
I don't hate it. I mean, I've talked about Hawkinson a lot. One of the very first videos I did on this channel was about tight ends after tier 1 that you should target. And I don't necessarily disagree with you because I really like TJ Hawkinson. And like I said, he is really going to be the focal pass catcher in that offense. I mean, we just talked about Tyrell Williams as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a lot of faith in DeAndre Swift. I think they've got a very good offensive line there. Don't get me wrong. I don't have all the faith in the world in Jared Goff, but he's done some good things in his career, I guess, right? But where you're having to draft TJ Hawkinson, I don't dislike the selection because I do think that at that point in time, even with some of the other names in that tier, like a Mark Andrews, Kyle Pitts, like I think you're going to get the same value out of guys like Robert Tonyan and Mike Gesicki, who you can hold off for some time and target one of those guys, and even like a Tyler Higbee, a Logan Thomas. I think they give you very, very similar value. But I think the argument is that Hawkinson could see, over 1,000 receiving yards this year. But
I mean, he's going to see a shit ton of targets. That's for sure. Yeah. He is going to see a lot of targets.
But I just think looking at my draft strategy, doing, all these mock drafts where you're having to draft TJ Hawkinson, it's not going to make sense for me to go out and get him.
Yeah.
But so I don't hate it as a selection. Like you probably hate mine, but hey man, if you got a feeling, you got to stick to it. And I've already gone out here and said I'd rather draft David Montgomery or Josh Jacobs or Antonio Gibson, even guys like Najee Harris, Jonathan Taylor ahead of Austin Eckler, which a lot of people don't want to do. So, I'm just gonna stick by my bold prediction and ride it out.
Hey man, let's also talk about let's. You want to talk about guts right here? I think another guy who's got massive bust potential, AJ Brown with the Tennessee Titans.
Hey, I had the same thought. I really did.
He is like top 9, top 10 in a lot of people's rankings. And there's just no way I'm drafting him at where he's going right now. And even if I see this dude in the 3rd round, I'm like, sorry, I can't do it. Like, there's just something about AJ Brown. It's just like, it's a stink.
I mean, I think you can hold off and you can still get Julio Jones, which we've talked about on this channel. And I understand why people, I guess the opposite argument is that Julio is going to open things up more for AJ Brown and allow him to
he
have
is a freak athlete, bro. He is a freak athlete.
And to be honest, I could see it going either way. And for me, that makes it a little bit of a stay away. But I also draft pretty wide receiver light. So I don't dislike the pick, and I had the same thought cross my
Yeah,
mind as well. But
which isn't a good thing. That's not a good thing if we both have
yeah,
the same thought.
yeah. I mean, but I also want to make you mad talking about Austin Eckler. So let's
Yeah.
end tonight's podcast with best Week 1 waiver wire pickup, and I'm really interested to hear what you have to say about this one.
It's gonna be I really hate the sequence of these questions because it's gonna make me sound like I'm contradicting myself. But I think it's Jamal Williams if he slips out of your if he slips out of your draft. I think this is a guy who's for sure gonna be somebody that you look at week one and you're like, oh shit, I need him on my team. I mean, DeAndre Swift's hurt. He's probably going to be sitting out longer than just 1 week because the coaches are coming out and saying he's got this core injury that's bugging the shit out of him. They're worried about his conditioning and his stamina. Jamal Williams is a proven beast as a back, dude. I mean, that's why Aaron Jones is my MVP, bro, because he's not there anymore. Aaron Jones can finally feast.
Yeah.
I think Jamal Williams, if he slips out of your draft board or maybe he's the last pick to go, he's a for sure guy. I mean, with that said, though, because he does get drafted sometimes at the end, my other pick is Sterling Shepard for the New York Giants.
I like that pick.
I think this is not a sexy pick at all, but this is a guy who sees a ton of targets every game. He's like 7 to 10 targets a game.
He's Daniel
a target
Jones' security blanket, man.
Yeah, he's a target
I don't know
hog.
if you watched the latest 20-man draft episode I did, but that's like my main target in my 20-man draft coming up on Sunday. So not to cut you off, but
no, yeah. So I mean, freaking Kadarius Toney, the rookie they drafted, has been injured and has looked horrible. Kenny Galladay has been god awful in preseason. So Evan Ingram is hurt. I mean, Sterling Shepard is kind of becoming like last man standing. And then I'll give you one more. I feel like I'm taking away all your potential picks here, but Colts wide receiver Zach Pascal. This guy is like their do-it-all makeshift player. He's going totally undrafted. Shit, I saw him in your 20-man draft going super late. I mean, nobody wants to touch this guy. This guy was like our best receiver last year. I mean, he has proven chemistry with the coaching staff. He is running at every single position, outside, inside. We trust the shit out of him, and we love this guy. And it's Michael Pittman and him next year. You got Paris Campbell out there too, but Paris Campbell is not a starter next year. He has not been running with the ones. So I like Zach Pascal as well.
Man, there's a lot of people I could bring up right now. I want to bring a guy up who I talked about, a lot before August, who I haven't talked about as much, right? And that's a guy who's going to be playing alongside Calvin Ridley at the wide receiver position.
Ooh, I love this. I love
that. Of Russell Gage, man.
So much better than my picks. So much better than my picks, honestly.
I just think that at the end of the day, right? Sorry. At the end of the day, I had to gather my thoughts for this.
You were like all philosophical right there, bro. You were breaking into that.
It's really not even that. Yeah, it's not that exciting, right?
We're talking about waiver wire pickups.
So at the end of the day, we know that the Falcons are going to throw the football a lot, right? Matt Ryan's still there, and he's going to throw the football a lot, right? And I think that Calvin Ridley and Kyle Pitts are probably going to get the most benefit out of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that Russell Gage is still the next best target in this offense, right? And I really think that he's going to come out and be able to put up around 1,000 receiving yards and a couple scores. I really still stand by that. And I think worst case scenario, you're going to see like a 700 to 800 receiving yard year with like 4 or 5 scores, which from fantasy perspective is not great, right? But I think that as the season goes on, this is going to be a guy kind of looming in the waiver wire. Depending on, how many teams are in your league, this is going to be a guy that's going to be kind of similar to like a Sterling Shepard value, right? So I just want to get Russell Gage in people's minds and at least have people thinking about Russell Gage. But the other guy who we talked about a little bit earlier in this podcast is Ramantra Stevenson, man. Like, you got me like hip to him overall, I would say, and I feel like I stole this pick from you. But man, I'm just after Sony Michel got traded, this guy really shot up on my draft boards, and I think he's really solidified himself as the RB2 in that New England Patriots offense. And let's not forget that historically the worst backfield to chase has been the New England Patriots
Yeah.
backfield in fantasy. But nonetheless, I think that could work to, Stevenson's favor in terms that Damon Harris has looked, pretty good, basically solidified the RB1 position. But Bill Belichick's not going to be afraid to get talent involved. And I think where Stevenson becomes a waiver wire target, a sleeper target, is that I think he's going to get a lot of work near the red zone and the goal line formations. And I think he's going to have a good year, man. I like this guy a lot. I think he's going to be fun to watch.
I love Stevenson. I think the reason I didn't talk too much about him in this segment was more about I do think the reason they got rid of Sonny Michel is because they believed in Stevenson so much as an RB2, but they also believed in JJ Taylor, who is
Yeah,
also another young back, small guy. He's like my size, but this guy's a killer. And
yeah,
he is really good at playing the James White role.
yeah,
So they have a pretty loaded backfield when you're talking about depth. So this is going to be another one of those years where take your shot, see what's
yeah,
up.
yeah,
But don't be surprised if some random ass player scores a touchdown instead of your guy.
yeah, yeah. It's going to be interesting to see who's. I'm going to try and do like a waiver wire episode like every Monday morning is kind of my
Mm-hmm.
goal for the season because I just love that's like my favorite dynamic of fantasy football, and I think that's the thing that keeps me in it year in and year out is that I can use the waiver wire.
We're
Yeah,
really good at scouting. Yeah,
yeah,
we are all over that thing.
yeah, yeah. It's funny when we're text each other and we'll only give each other certain answers if we know
Yeah.
we're ahead of each other a
Yeah.
bit, so yeah, man, waiver wire is a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that, man. But that caps off the podcast for the night, man. That was a lot of fun. I think we're both super stoked for this upcoming season. So I mean, as always, guys, go ahead and smash the like button. You guys know that it helps out the channel. We are on the road to 100 subscribers still, man. We're going to hit that goal by the end of September. I can feel it, man. I really can. And if we don't, then I'll just cry myself to sleep. It's all good. But nonetheless, hit the sub button, man. Drop some comments down below with what you guys got out of this podcast, what your guys' perspectives are in comparison to ours. We love getting those comments and getting that feedback as well. And just shout out to the Catch fam, man. All the love and support over the past month or so has been phenomenal. It's been an incredible journey, and I think we're both just super stoked to hop into this football season. So I'll hand it over to you for any closing thoughts as well.
Yeah, this was a fun one, just kind of getting to do like a little shot fired questions here and there just to see what our thoughts are unscripted. And it was a fun one, but man, I'm excited too. And we got our draft coming up the day before the season. Let me just tell you, I'm getting some nerves, man. I'm getting some anxiety. So, but hey, guys, let us know what kind of shows you want to see going forward once the season starts, because fantasy football changes completely, man. Now it's about that waiver wire. Now it's about those week-to-week changes for your team. So we are all about that. That's how we have won our championships in the past, and that's how you're going to win your championships this year. So just let us know. Give us any pointers or any tips or any ideas about what you want to see this season.
Absolutely. And as always, we thank everyone for watching and or listening. And remember, you saw it here on The Catch.